they were saying that you need to invest in brand. You need to invest in brand.
Everything that doesn't have a metric that you can measure in it, is it bullshit?
Immediately, how do you double your business? They're going to say, I have to spend shitloads of money. You just don't. You don't. And it's a lot easier to optimize something by 26% or three things than one thing by 100%. So LTV is where you should be investing a lot of time and energy. And if you don't have a product that naturally lends itself to a second sale, launch one. You need to have something unique and strong about your product that allows you to have a reasonable selling price, because you're going to be paying 15%-ish in seller fees. So it's good when you're launching something new, but my personal preference is always to build brand equity on the back end of it, which it can help you do, but you need to really communicate your brand on the product listing page. And if anyone's spending some cash and they're not analyzing that, then I don't think they're doing it optimally.
But before we begin, a quick shout out to our partner, ImShop. This company creates the best out-of-the-box mobile app solution for retail and e-commerce. They are cost-effective, fast-start omni-channel solution with open integrations. I worked with them and I can assure the quality. imshop.io. The link will be in the description below. So now back to the interview. Hi, Mark.
How you doing, man? Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for finding time for us, and welcome to the Digital Voice.
Good, man. Yeah, excited.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. For those viewers and listeners who don't know you, what will be the 10 seconds or elevator pitch to describe you?
The 10-second one. So I'm a recovering Australian that escaped the sunny shores about a decade ago. Lots and lots of direct-to-consumer bits, and I had a lot of fun doing it. So over the 10 years, it's about $1 billion in revenue that I've driven, and about 150 million that I like to say was donated to the Zuckerberg Foundation and the Google mob. So keeping those guys happy, and the focus I've really got, well, it's more of like an obsession, is understanding how much of growth can be replicated across different businesses, across different verticals, to build it out as a blueprint. And for that, I focus on people, processes, and technology. So no doubt we'll cover lots of bits there. So yeah, lots of growth stuff, and hopefully some good pieces to share with the audience.
So you personally worked with a lot of e-commerce brands as leading e-commerce, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. In different types of roles. So some of them have been marketing director with a company like Truva, VP of growth with US-based company Nectar Sleep or Resident Home, and then more recently, Growth Shops, my business, which takes an equity share in different businesses, and then we help them grow as well. But we get to manage multiple projects in parallel.
So you do grow businesses for a living?
Yes, that's it. Try to, and it's going pretty well. But that's it.
So you are the guy to ask about how to grow a business.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I got a few useful things. Sometimes I tell a lot of shitty stories to get to the meat. But yeah.
We love shitty stories and the meat as well.
Careful what you wish for.
That's good news. Yeah. So what is growth marketing? When we all know about marketing, we all know about awareness marketing, performance marketing, but what do you mean by growth marketing?
So growth marketing is really a term that's become more popular over the last five-ish years. And I guess a useful comparison would be looking at something like brand marketing versus growth marketing. So growth marketing has a much tighter feel on the immediate results. So if I'm spending $1 with growth marketing, I want to know how much I'm getting back on a 24-hour basis or maybe a weekly basis, which means it's a return on ad spend or a return on investment type of perspective. Versus something like brand marketing is a longer term play, and it's more about things such as market awareness of your brands, and it may not be scrutinized on quite aggressive metrics like that. And what's naturally come out of having a perspective where I want to know what my dollar's doing on a 24-hour basis or a weekly basis means that people have got more aggressive with the different types of strategies and tactics they apply to grow their businesses. So that's where we get things such as growth hacking, conversion optimization, more aggressive optimization of things such as email and SMS, and also a real revolution on the approach to business intelligence. So it's wanting to know what your dollar does on a much shorter time frame, and then taking action based on what you're learning.
That's interesting because, well, all lies into a category of like performance marketing. But is it a set of instruments, or growth marketing is an approach when you can actually do media advertising, or I don't know, pre rolls on YouTube, but only the metrics will be different, or it's a set of instruments that you use?
I think it's a little bit of all of it. So one of the pieces that's been working really well for us has been taking this growth mindset, which is let's get to the granular data, let's get to the truth of what's working and what's not working, and then test and test and test. And we've applied that to offline to online concepts. So some of the biggest wins we had, like with one of the previous businesses we were building, was getting a lot smarter about direct mail. And we were taking advantage of a program with the U.S. Postal Service where you can get access to about 16,000 leads a day for people that are moving house. And with that, they, God bless America, allow you and I don't want to use the word spam, but I would say liberally communicate with these people versus all these different print vehicles. People would just ship it out and they wouldn't really have a good understanding of the ROI. We created a much more sophisticated approach with millions of coupon codes, and it allowed us to work out which vehicles worked and which vehicles didn't. And then what we did is we'd start extracting. Instead of trying to sell people directly off a pamphlet, we'd bait them into coming to landing pages. We'd capture their phone number, capture their email. And it was only when we took that perspective that we were then able to convert them later on down the line. So it was more of a mindset. It's trying to get to the truth, and then it's being very creative and fast with how you move someone through a funnel using the data that you've got about them.
Yeah, that's interesting because something like direct mail is the top of the funnel, right? So this is the cold traffic, people who don't know the brand yet.
Yeah, well, there's actually a mix, and this is another God bless America, where there's direct mail retargeting, where you can have pixel matches. So if you come to my website and I don't have your email, I don't have your SMS, but the pixel identifies who you are, I can actually send you direct mail as a retargeting vehicle. So you can have it primarily as a top of funnel, but then you can also get tricky and use it as a retargeting or mid to bottom funnel activity.
Okay, so what's your take on the awareness marketing? Everything that doesn't have a metric that you can measure in it, is it bullshit?
Yeah. Well, it's tricky because I had fights with Facebook about this in Israel, and we were comparing two sets of numbers, and we were spending a shitload with these guys. I think it was about $5-6 million a month, and they were saying that you need to invest in brand. You need to invest in brand. I was like, what the fuck is brand? All brand really is elongating the time horizon for when you're meant to get paid back. That's all it really is. So are you investing in brand so that people buy from you for the first time when it's front of mind? So it may be that I like what you offer, but I don't need it yet. But when I do need it, I'm going to think of you. That's essentially just saying there's an elongated payback period. The second thing would be something like defensibility, which is that I know that my competitors are aggressively trying to market at you. So I want to make sure that when you repurchase something, you're coming back to me. But both of them ultimately drill down to an ROI. So awareness marketing in this case should always still have a growth marketing / ROI number attached to it. And if anyone's spending some cash and they're not analyzing that, then I don't think they're doing it optimally.
Okay, but I think that one of the main challenges for the people who are running awareness marketing and at the same moment doing something like remarketing and so your basic performance marketing instruments are struggling with unifying all this information based on some kind of client ID or something.
Yeah.
So you mentioned business, so it's like some BI system that you're using. Can you tell us some tricks on how to properly merge this information into one funnel so you will get a 360 view or like a transparent view through the funnel?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and even more relevant with the iOS updates. So the approach that I've got here is to use marketing mix modeling instead of trying to optimize for a unified view, which means that a unified view may be that Philip clicks off of Facebook ads. He comes to the website. He doesn't buy anything, but he gives us his email. He then opens an email, doesn't buy anything. Facebook retargets him, goes back to Google, types into Google off his desktop now, X brand, and clicks on a branded ad. You can no longer stitch all that data together in a really consistent way because none of the big players actually give all that data. So something like Google Analytics, if you're looking at multi-device reports, it's going to give you just a fraction of what you want to know. Same thing with Facebook. Facebook Analytics used to be good. They used to claim that 97% of devices would have Facebook coverage. It's just not true anymore. So the approach I take instead is to aggregate all of the spend. So say you're advertising on just Facebook and Google. You can do this with Google Sheets and tools like Supermetrics. It's really, if someone doesn't know how to use those tools, go to Upwork. You can find someone for $150 to do it for you. And I extract that paid media, I stack it up to get a total, and then I look at the actual revenue I'm getting. And you could extract that from your platform like Google Analytics, or even better, something like Shopify Magento. How much money am I actually spending and how much money am I actually getting? And then what I look at is what's my return on ad spend overall. Then if you want to get a little bit trickier with it, then I'd look at things like contribution margin. So instead of just saying revenue, I want to know what's my actual gross profit of those units. Then what I do is I set that number so I know my business may need to perform at 400%. If I'm performing at 400%, fantastic. I want to be spending more money. So then what I do is I go into each platform. So I say, all right, Facebook, your numbers look decent. Improve your numbers versus last month. So try and scale your spend while holding return on ad spend. And then I look at what that aggregate pattern does. So if Facebook increases spend by 50% and the ROAS number within Facebook's still good, what happens to my actual business level metrics? If that return on ad spend number is still good, then I keep spending more and more and more and more. So it's being confident with the unknowns. And the important thing is optimize Facebook off Facebook's numbers, optimize Google off Google's numbers. Don't ever use something like GA to try and do it because it just doesn't pick it up.
But what will be the main ROI that you're using? Return on advertising spend on the whole campaign?
Yeah, it would be. Within Facebook, it would be. Yeah. I only ever focus on things such as return on ad spend within Facebook. And you've got to have a very good sense of what the profitability is of those different units. So for example, you may have a ROAS of 400%, but if you're selling half products that have a margin of 80% and then half products that have a margin of 10%, you've got to have a really good feel for that. So you've got to dig into the actual mix of profitability of your orders.
But this is a good metric if your business is born yesterday. So there is no organic traffic. No one is actually typing you in. It's just pure. You can look at this metrics for the campaign, and that's it. That will be true. Yeah. But at the same moment, if you have a lot of organic, if you have different distractions and different other sources of traffic, how can you calculate the ROAS correctly?
It depends how detailed you want to get. So when I'm looking at something like organic activity or SEO activity, it should be treated like media spend in the same kind of way. So if you're paying $10,000 a month to have content writers and then have content syndication, I'd be factoring that into my marketing spend number always. And then I treat it the same way. But then it gets really tricky. So if you're talking about SEO activity, then you've got to look at the intent of the keyword. So you may be getting something really top of funnel. Like if we're talking about mattresses, you may have cracked bad back problems. But people may want solutions where they're actually going to end up going to the doctor. It doesn't mean they're going to buy something like a back massager, not necessarily. But the overall pattern that I look for is I want to know how profitable the business is. And if I'm profitable, I want to be spending as much money as possible, always going aggressive into the unknown.
Okay, the last question on this nerdy topic. What do you think about LTV? How important is the lifetime value on this CAC versus LTV?
Unbelievably, exceptionally, phenomenally important, for sure. It's your secret weapon.
More important than what you spend, like the ROAS?
No, it should be factored into ROAS. So your ROAS target should be your LTV performance helps factor what your ROAS number should be. So the other place that you win, and you see a lot of this in info marketing companies where they break even on the front end. So where most people may be selling, say, a $500 product, there may be competitors that want to reach a 300% ROAS. But the big guys are happy to break even or even lose money on it if they know that they can make their money on the LTV on the back end. And what people often find is that the first sale is the hardest sale. As you're building the relationship, you're building trust. If you can deliver on that, whether it's a content product or whether it's a physical product, it's a lot easier to start selling to them again. And I think a fun way to think about it is that I wrote a mini series on Ecom Academy, our site, which is how to double your business without spending another cent. This always blew my mind. When people are thinking about doubling the business, you only need to increase 3 different things by 26%. And in this case, I do talk about traffic, but if you increase, actually take this example, if you increase revenue per user, which is a function of conversion rate and average order value and LTV by 26% each, you double your business, which is a really useful way to think about it. Because if you talk to someone immediately, how do you double your business? They're going to say, I have to spend shitloads of money. You just don't. You don't. And it's a lot easier to optimize something by 26% or 3 things than one thing by 100%. So LTV is where you should be investing a lot of time and energy. And if you don't have a product that naturally lends itself to a second sale, launch one.
Yes, and this conveniently brings us to the topic of direct to consumer. So for all of the normal people who are like falling asleep right now already, let's get to the set of questions about the direct to consumer. So you had a lot of experience with direct to consumer brands. By all of this time, have you found the recipe on how to choose a niche, how to choose a correct area to bring in the new product?
I think about it from a very spreadsheet perspective. I don't have a need to have glory brands or anything like that. Like I'll sell humidifiers or mattresses because for me the art is in the mechanics of building something quickly. So people will need to find a niche really for themselves, but they should be keeping unit economics in mind from the beginning. So always be thinking about a few different things. So I look for the profitability of the actual units. I want to know that I can build an unfair advantage when I come into the market. So I will never, ever enter a market if I see that a competitor is selling something for $80 and I can only buy it for $40 before I pay for things such as free shipping and the team. So I'll always start with those really, really binary numbers. The next piece that I look for is that I want to see a real natural fit to build a moat, something defensible. So, for example, in the case we talked about before, if we were just going direct to consumer selling these products, just using Facebook and Google, it wouldn't have worked. We wanted to know that we could build a relationship and get a lead source from someone like the United States Postal Service. So I'm always looking for the first checkpoint, which is understanding that the unit economics make sense. I'm looking for at least one competitor that's doing something well, but a space that's not too crowded. And I want to know that I'm not going against competitors that are venture backed aggressively. If you're not venture backed, you're just going to get absolutely just annihilated because they can afford to lose money acquiring every customer.
But at the same moment, you had an experience like this selling mattresses for the underdog company, right? Versus the Casper.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you tell a couple of words about this experience? How was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. But what was special about that is that the guys that founded it, so Craig Rand and Eric, did a really good job at building it from the beginning to be a winner. So the opportunity in the market at that time was that you had guys like Casper who would raise 380 million, whose current enterprise value is less than what they raised. And then you had guys like Purple that had innovated their own products, really, really smart guys. But no one was pricing at a level that was a bit more accessible. So the product was priced at a few $100s less. Casper had come in, pumped their VC dollars to educate the market because this was a new product category. People weren't buying mattresses online. At the time, it seemed absurd. Casper spaffed all their cash away to educate the market. And then there were small things such as the competitors were offering 100 nights free trial. Our product had 365 nights. They had 10-year warranties. We had a forever warranty. So beating price and then winning on 2 different features was enough to get escape velocity. And then the business, the rate of sales essentially funded the growth of the entire business. So that was right time, right place.
Yeah, that's interesting. Since we touched this point, what is your take on this lifetime warranty policies and try and return if you don't like it policies? Will refund you 100% policies. Does it really work? Shouldn't the entrepreneur be scared of implementing this?
It's all a function of risk, really. So the interesting thing is that people are very lazy. People will firstly, those things are good, but they're not the reasons people buy. You've got to do selling, and you've got to convince people that you've got a really strong offering and a legitimate product, and it can reduce risk, but it's not the thing that convinces somebody to buy. So you've got to get it right. If you've legitimately got a good product, and you know it solves a need, then I'm never scared about it, because it's always just a function of risk. Something that's easy to return, like in fashion, it can be really expensive. So you've got to model it in. So if you see easy returns, you could be looking at 40% return rate. Something like a mattress, you've already got rid of your old mattress. It's a pain in the ass to do it. So the return rate is actually very low. And what I would do is I'd always be modeling it from the beginning. So what's interesting about, say, like a 100-day free night versus 365 nights is that you may find that the majority of people that don't like it are probably going to return it in the first couple of weeks or the first couple of months. So then the long tail is fine, and the increase in conversion rate you get from having that kind of big sales pitch actually covers much more than the loss that you get for having the extended period.
Okay. You mentioned a unique unfair advantage. How to formulate this one?
The unfair advantage is broad. And what I like about it is that it comes back down to kind of fundamental business shit that was happening in 1788. The old, like, how do you get a deal with your supplier that your competitors don't have? And it can be challenging if you're starting out, but if you've got a reputation or you've got any leverage, actually no, let's take it like this. So say you're starting something and you want to be able to negotiate better terms. You can find people that were in your industry that may be retired that have good networks. You can give them a couple of points of equity to help you negotiate these types of deals. So an unfair advantage, you could look at company A and company B. So company A may have to pay for their inventory up front. They have to wait for it on the ocean for 4 weeks, then they can sell it. So it's a 6-week cash conversion cycle. Player B negotiates 60-day net payment terms, which means that they've got the products and they can sell them for 2 weeks before they've had to pay a single cent. So that's an example of an unfair advantage. Another one may be it may be on the media side. So you could find a blog or you could find a forum that may have shitloads of traffic, and they're currently optimizing by just selling media space. What if you go to them and you say, look, guys, I've got a product that fits perfectly with your market, and I want you guys to have some skin in the game. So how about you take 5% or 5 points on the business, and you'll also get a nice CPA payment for whatever pays out. So it's kind of thinking constructively. And a unique advantage or an unfair advantage, defensible moat, I like to think about it as something where you have to pick up the phone and you have to have a conversation with somebody. Because anytime you're willing to have a conversation with somebody and get told fuck off a couple of times, your competitors aren't going to be doing that. You're less and less likely. Anybody can log into Facebook and give their Amex, hopefully getting their points. So the harder it is to do it, the more defensible it's usually going to be.
You are a very old-fashioned entrepreneur, and this is very cool because in these days, a lot of people in digital are completely not about picking up a phone and doing a phone call. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly, man.
Um, so there is, a huge temptation for entrepreneurs who are starting a business, and this is a product business, to enter marketplaces, e-tailers like Amazon, like, I don't know, Taobao, Tmall, anything else, because they will remove a lot of headache from you. You don't need to think about acquiring. You don't need to think about logistics. You don't need to think about all of this stuff. But do you feel like by working with them you're lacking something? You're lacking the direct communication with the client, and building all of those growth marketing strategies and stuff like this.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix. So there's a few different ways that I like to take advantage of these marketplaces. So one place where it's really powerful is when you're expanding into a new market. So we see a lot of companies from the UK or Australia that want to crack the US. it's amazing because it's the best. Like FBA is one of the best 3PLs you can find. The other thing it does is it helps you gain some sense of credibility. Like I've owned a few different Amazon businesses, and it was miraculous. I was still working for an agency at the time, and I created an essential oils company, and I'm on the back of a boat. We've got a company event, and then my phone, it didn't have signal, and then it comes back down into shore, and it was ping, 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 and I'd made like 30 grand, and at the time I was getting paid a couple grand a month. I was like, wow. So it was amazing because you could create a brand that doesn't feel like anything and tap into this gigantic pool, this audience pool. The part that was challenging is that my product was a utility, really. So I didn't have any brand weight, which meant that I was selling at $27, and then someone came and started selling at $13, and it was price wins. So you need to have something unique and strong about your product that allows you to have a reasonable selling price, because you're going to be paying 15%-ish in seller fees. So it's good when you're launching something new, but my personal preference is always to build brand equity on the back end of it, which it can help you do, but you need to really communicate your brand on the product listing page. The other piece is that I like to own my customer information. So traditionally, FBA businesses used to have a 1x multiple on profit, where you could see direct-to-consumer companies getting 3.5 to 5 times. That's shifted now with all of these roll-ups, just kind of gobbling them up, but that bubble's going to pop. So I think it's very useful, but I'd always want to run it in tandem of building my own asset, something that's got its own unique enterprise value, independent of Amazon. There's another piece that happened with Amazon is that they decided that my product had a high flash point, which meant that it was dangerous. So then they just blocked all of my inventory, which I'd maxed every credit card. Overnight, they just shut it down. I got it fixed through creative measures. But it just showed there's nothing I could do about it. There's nothing. And I had to pay to dispose of the products if I went through with their original ruling. So I always have it as a diversified strategy, but it's very, very useful to get exposure or to launch into new markets.
So you think that this is not like an this or that game? It's more of a this and that game, right?
Always this and that, yeah. And there's smart ways you can do it. Like you have to have price parity across a lot of products with a lot of these guys, but you can launch specific units that may be better targeted to just Amazon, and then you could have bundles that are available, on your own website to draw people back. But yeah, it's always
yeah. There are a lot of smart strategies. Actually, I don't remember Casper or some of these companies actually did. They both sold like a pillow or something through Amazon and mattresses.
Yeah.
Only at their website or something like this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very smart.
Exactly.
Okay. But you mentioned I cannot not ask this, because you mentioned something. Brand equity, building brand equity is crucial. But at the same moment, growth hacking does not exclude building brand equity, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like like water and oil. It's
yeah.
How do you then put it in one message? So you need something with a strong call to action,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same moment you need to convey brand value. How do you do this?
The way I like to think about brand, and I used to just have the shittiest ads and I didn't care. I'm like, look, if I can convert it, it doesn't matter. Brand doesn't matter. It's about direct response. And then I started getting a feel for it when I started talking to a lot of customers and then working with people that did it right. So I see brand as continuity of message and feel. So a test I use is like a napkin test, which is that you need to be able to distill what's special about your company on a napkin. And after someone reads it, they need to know whether or not they're going to love your brands, but it should be polarizing. And then from that, once you've got a really clear message, and it can't be bullshit. It can't be, superlatives where it's like, we're the best, we're striving for excellence. Bullshit. It's got to be something honest. And it would be the same way that if you met a friend and you had to describe your business. And then once you've distilled down that core message, it's how consistent are you across your website? How consistent are you across your ads, your emails, your SMS flows, your packaging? So it's continuity. So you see cool companies like FrankBod, which is an Aussie brand, and there's a real feel to it. And there was a whole play that they had, which they really empowered people. So it was like a coffee scrub, and you've got all these women of shapes and sizes with these semi risque types of looks covering their bodies, and it was all user generated content, but it was wrapped in their own look and feel, which managed continuity and authenticity. So I think it's about how consistent you are with your message over every single touch point.
So those times of big brands making this super expensive photo shoots using 10 images and thinking that this is the
Yeah,
game, that they will show this to the clients and they will love
yeah.
it, are long gone, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's always still a place for it when people get it right, but it's really the age of authenticity, and particularly when you're looking at what Gen Z demand, it's crazy. So they're still actually doing expensive photo shoots, but they make them look like user generated content. But there's no makeup. There's people of all shapes and sizes, uh, and you see a lot of that transcend into how people are producing their own creative. So the most powerful creative we have is all user generated content, and we get it from affiliates, we get it from customers, and it costs nothing. It costs nothing. You have a competition where win $500 worth of product, or we do Amazon vouchers, and then people pump it in droves. But it still needs to be wrapped in the polish of a brand that gives confidence, and it looks like a company's got their shit together.
Cool. I heard in some of your interviews you mentioned like client development and product development through actually speaking with the client and looking at the reviews, something that I thought very smart move. Can you please tell a bit more about how can you grow your product, evolve your product by the feedback of clients and by actually looking at the user generated content like reviews?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few different groups I look for when we're considering something like product development. So one is the customer that keeps buying and loves it, and I want to really distill down what do you love so much about it. The next one is someone that's bought a few times but may have kind of dropped off, and then the last one is someone that's returned the product, and I want to know exactly why. But and just by having these conversations with these people, you're going to learn just a shitload. But the other piece that is really interesting, and this is something useful for people that don't know how to improve their LTV, I ask them, what other products have you bought around the same time? What did you buy before this? What did you buy after this? And have you ever owned something that was similar that you owned a few years before? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? And it's amazing because people just have such a depth of knowledge and a depth of insight. And say you're talking about something like the home, if someone's buying a table, why are they buying a table? Is it because they've moved house? Is it because there's been a life event where they've got engaged and they want to do a bit of a refurb? If someone's buying a table, they're buying chairs, they're buying rugs, they're buying lights. Straight away, you can get that insight. Or if someone's buying a weight loss substance, what else are they going to be buying? They're going to be buying, fucking skipping rope. Are they going to be buying, a caliper test for their body fat, for their BMI? There's always so much there. You've just got to ask the people.
But if we're speaking about the new product, so the person is only launching their first product, and they want to find out how to create the best one. First of all, is there even such a thing as the best one? There are so many essential oils. There are so many
Yeah.
manufacturers. How do you know that your product is the best essential oil?
Yeah. Well, essential oils is
And do you need to know?
yeah. Well, essential oils was a shit decision, to be honest. But it wasn't at the time, because at the time I identified that it was a traffic unique advantage, because the competitors had shitty branding and their price points were high. And in the old days, when you'd optimize for Amazon, you do lots of spammy shit where you'd look at the number of reviews it had, and that would give you, based on the category, you could actually estimate within about 15% accuracy how many units they're selling per day. So all I'd look at is how much they're selling for, how much can I buy it from, how much could I improve the brand. But the gross overestimation I made there was that people cared a lot more about, I thought people cared a lot about a pretty package on Amazon. But as you pointed out, how much better can a peppermint oil be? And how can I prove it to people? So people preferred a shitty looking brand that cost $8 than a beautiful one that cost 27. in that Amazon landscape. On Amazon, that's the useful way you can do it. But you've got to look through reviews, and I'm looking for things such as people saying, "I wish it did this. I love it, but it does this." So, like I was talking with a guy that's got an amazing handbag company, and a lot of the reviews were saying the design is so beautiful, but the zip is so shitty. My things always get stuck, and I find it hard to open. So straight away, you've got this pitch point, which is that gorgeous handbags designed for the everyday woman, sturdy zippers, will never get stuck, lifetime guarantee. You found one thing. That wouldn't be enough to sell it, but you've got a pain point where people say, I wish it did this. That's a useful way to dig in.
You mentioned something interesting about people choosing the $8 peppermint oil versus the 27 one with the pretty package. Is this a rule of thumb? Is this something that means that don't look at the niches where there are existing, products that are very, very cheap, and it doesn't work just to elevate the design and packaging, or it's not always like this, and better packaging, better branding has a
Yeah,
chance.
it always does, but it's the arena that you're competing in. So if we're thinking about an undifferentiated product like a peppermint oil, and we're thinking about Amazon, the way that the rankings work is it's all based on conversion rate. So if your product is showing in fifth position and people click on it and 40% of the people buy it, versus the listing above it only converts at 30%, you can start climbing up the ladder, because Amazon wants to give people the most relevant result as quickly as possible, and they use conversion rate as the proxy for that. So in that instance, you can work it out pretty quickly. Where if there's a product that's got 5,000 reviews and it sells at $9, and you can't buy it for less, than $6, you're just not going to win. I wouldn't want to be competing there. But if you do have an existing oil and you want to sell it for $30, that's something where I would be looking to run, Instagram ads or even YouTube ads. It can work there because you've got to connect to somebody in a different arena where it's not just price sensitivity. It's the same thing with Google ads. People search Google when they've got an understanding of what their problem is and how they're going to solve it. So say you're looking for window repair. If there's 3 companies and they all look legitimate and one's 20-25% less, that guy's going to get the volume. It's just the way it works in those different arenas. So you've got to ensure that you're competing in the right way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, what trends can you point out for the 2022 in terms of direct-to-consumer brands and growth marketing? What to look out for?
So a big one is what you touched on before, which is it's going to be focusing on lifetime value, and it's going to be focusing on CRM. So people used to just set up basic types of email flows using tools like Klaviyo, but the level of sophistication and people that really crack it are the ones that are going to win. Like if you can get an extra 25% volume coming through your LTV, and your competitors can't, you're going to win, and they're not going to know how you hit them. So a lot of that LTV component actually ties into product development. The other piece is that messaging is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've seen now that the Instagram API has opened up really cool pieces of automation. So before, even companies like Nike would have 150, 200 people responding to stories. You're now going to have access through tools like MessageBird, where you can create automated rules for when people reply to stories or when people reshare. So it's the people that get sophisticated about conversational commerce, so messaging, that are really going to win as well. And that's huge. It's huge in Europe and Asia as well. The US is still really behind it in terms of usage of WhatsApp. Instagram is still quite big there. So getting very, very, very good at messaging. And then the other piece is thinking about your business performance in a more traditional sense, and having confidence to spend in when your overall business numbers are working. So if people are trying to optimize Facebook using Facebook's numbers like they did last year, you're not going to win. The users are still there. The intent is still there. There's just a big loss in data.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I really want to dig a little bit deeper into the question of messaging. Do you think that this is more of a service thing, or this is a like demand generation thing? So, isn't the messaging an instrument that usually will be used by the people who are already or like low part of the funnel clients? or existing clients?
Maybe everyone. So, I guess, how do you think about messaging? Like, how would you define it, just to make sure we're on the same page?
So we have connected something for the Echo, like WhatsApp messaging,
Oh, messaging
official
there. Oh,
WhatsApp.
right. I thought
So
you were talking about as in copywriting messaging. Got it.
yeah. No, I mean, actual, like what they call it, text
Yeah.
commerce. I heard that Gary Vaynerchuk has this wine something thing.
Yeah. Well, it's a prospecting tool now as well. Really. So you could be driving paid ads.
How can you prospect someone that you don't have a contact with?
It's a click to message ad. Click to message.
Oh, you
You can
mean
feed them.
this like a tool through your official Instagram profile or website where you can just click and then you can start the conversation in the messaging.
Yeah, exactly. And it was amazing because we.
So, do you feel that this is just a better way to convert because it has less friction for the client?
Yeah, it's really powerful. And then anything that maintains on platform has better data transparency as well. But what I love about it is one of the other marketing strategies I've had that was extremely effective was things such as quizzes and things such as chatbots early on, as you could identify who your three main personas are, and you, instead of just pummeling someone through to a homepage or a PDP, you say, what's your problem? What's your problem? What's the thing you're trying to solve here? And usually there's only three different things, 2 to 3 different things that your product's solving. It's harder when it's fashion. That can be more about trends and preference. But if you've got a product that solves a problem, it's really easy. And what I always try to do is I would call up someone that worked at like a mattress store, or I'd call up someone that works in a physical retail place, Joe from Idaho, and I'm like, man, let me buy you a cup of coffee. Let me give you an Amazon voucher. What are the types of questions that people ask you? It's the same shit. You know what I mean? There's only so many questions. That's the best way to build out a chatbot flow. So you can't do that from an ad. But if you're initiating a conversation from a click to message ad, you can then bolt on the chatbot sequences on the back end. So then it allows you to really funnel down to the problem that you're trying to solve for somebody. So it's about mimicking a conversation. Well, unfortunately, they are a conversation. It's just with AI. So we're getting into metaverse shit here now. Dangerous territory.
Yeah, Meta is official from last
Yeah.
week. Great. Mark, thank you very much for your time, for the wisdom. I'm sure everybody have enjoyed this new information. So, what's the website where people can actually look some more information from
Yeah, you
you?
can head to growth.shop. That's a good way to go.
Growth.shop.
That's it.
Great. Thank you, Mark, again.
No worries, man.
We'll keep in touch. See you.
Cheers, brother. Pleasure.